What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting here with Cameron Selby, and we are going to be doing the final big board. It's going to be a top 100 big board. Super exciting. Finished it up this earlier this week, and it's funny when you're like sliding people around, and you're like, okay, do I like this guy more, or do I like this guy more? What are the flaws, ceiling versus floor, and all those things. And so coming up with this board, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of like thought process, but it's so much fun to do.
Yeah, for sure. And the main thing that I find interesting is just no one has a clue
Fair?
to have a consensus of a true big board because everybody just values things differently. Some people have positional values. Some people just raw talent, who's the best or who could be the best at said position. But you see that evident at least on the guys that we have yet to bring up, because our first big board we did top 50. Now we've expanded that to top 100, and some of the first guys we see, there's a 50, 70, 80 placement difference between like Bleacher Report, PFF, or they're not even on big boards of some people's.
Right.
So it's very interesting to discuss, and I'm sure we'll get into that pretty shortly.
Yeah, let's pull it up. We're going to do these by sets of 20 at the back end because there's just so many players we got to get through. We did have some talking points we wanted to talk about just in general. I thought that, just talking about some of the guys that we're taking stands on, if you look up there, if you look at the number 89, Upton Stout, he is currently in the 200s on PFF and 123 on Bleacher Report. But I really like this guy. I like what he brings to the table. He's a nickel corner that I don't think a lot of people are going to rank nickel corners, and that's kind of like part of the thing. Like a lot of people push nickels farther down their boards, and I think that it's becoming a position of such need. That's why he's on here. So
Right, because a lot more receivers nowadays because we have such depth at talent, probably better than I've ever seen in the NFL in terms of just like, hey, the 40th best receiver can still get 1,000 yards in a good situation, and a lot of these guys are playing in the slot, and not many corners want to travel anymore, so they designate specific guys to be tracking and being around certain spots, and so it's becoming more paramount, and we've seen more and more guys get pay raises and upgrades because of that.
Yeah, and with him, he had a 90.9 run grade, so he can also tackle. Being in the slot means you have to also be able to play the run because you're basically the seventh guy when you get when the offense gets in the spread look. So having to be able to play the run, he can do that too, which is cool. The next guy I want to talk about is Brashard Smith. He's 91 up there. I just believe that Brashard Smith is the best receiving back in this class, and I think that there's other players that people are vaulting up because of the receiving upside. Jaden Blue, people like that, and I just think Brashard Smith is the by far better of the receiving backs, and that's why he's so much higher on our board and also in our like running back rankings in general.
Yeah, he's kind of one of the lost names in this absolutely loaded class. He is smack dab in the middle of our running back rankings, but he tested really well at the combine. He's got age, good athleticism, good numbers. He led SMU to a playoff appearance, and it doesn't seem like many people are on him as a high quality pick. We look at the big board, and both of them, PFF and Bleacher Report, have him outside of the top 130, and he's all the way at 91 for us. So it's more so we are putting more value on these guys because we just think their game translate really well at this level.
Yeah, and then Baron Soro, he's 111 by PFF, but 190 by Bleacher Report. I think that's a little bit low overall, but he's a high effort guy playing for Texas. You watch a lot of Texas, and you just like you've said in the past, he was just kind of the stable guy on the defensive line. You had all these like freak athletes and things going on around him, but he was just the guy that made plays when it mattered and did the right things consistently. And I love guys like that, especially if they're going to come in and be edge threes for a team and be a rotational piece and then try to work for like that edge two run stopping style of guy. So that's why we have him up here.
For sure. And then kind of other notable names, like you got Harold Fannin, who was the all-time breaking record for tight end, does have the athleticism or the size issue, but that's kind of one of those kind of small school. Are the numbers really what we say they are? And I guess we're going to find out. But he'll be a fringe day 2, day 3 pick, and I wouldn't be shocked if he did turn out, but it is a sneaky good tight end class. I mean, Gunnar Helm and Terrence Ferguson are also nothing to sniff at as well.
For sure. And then we'll talk about your guy that you wanted to get on.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very polarizing one because Ollie Gordon is 87 for us. He is 11th. I haven't seen somebody keep him this high. Maybe just kind of fantasy people wanting to do dynasty rankings that don't really have a clue about scouting talent, but they just remember a name. But I mean, he's 239. That's like undrafted territory on PFF, and 167 Bleacher Report. I mean, obviously he didn't test great at the combine, but that's not the style he is. I mean, we see several 4.6 backs in the NFL still translate well. I mean, Kyron Williams is a lot of people's favorites right now. Chuba Hubbard, a former Oklahoma State guy, isn't. He's just kind of a similar build of a 6'1", 220 guy, and he's coming off a down year, but Doak Walker Award winner before, 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns the season before. If he was eligible to come out, and he couldn't, so he had to come back and return. Oklahoma State just completely fell off a cliff. Still had a respectable 14 touchdowns, but it was one of the worst teams in the entire conference, and it really took a toll on his draft stock.
Well, I think if you just look at, if we're going to take 2023 versus 2024, like that's kind of like if you're believing in the 2023 tape, you believe in this guy. And I do. I think I put him actually, funny enough, to my favorite landing spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers was to get Ollie Gordon. And that could be third or fourth round based on the rankings we see. And the reason is because he is basically Najee Harris, but way cheaper. He's going to, he was Najee Harris style last year. He jumps over players like everybody likes to see, but he also ran similar times, did all the same things. He's a little bit bigger, I want to say, but
I mean, they're both 6'2".
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
Najee might be a little heavier. I think he was like closer to 240.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I mean, still, nevertheless, they play the similar style. And so if you're going to have some love coming out from Najee Harris, which at the time, he was the all-time touchdown leader for Alabama, and that warranted him becoming a first-round pick. Wouldn't say that necessarily panned out, but I mean, you can't say that was a similar evaluation for Najee, but then somebody similar who has some success, but just coming off a down year is just valued way lower.
And that's exactly how I kind of like worded what I was thinking on him is just like, if you're going to Walmart version him, like he's a fourth rounder, like fringe fifth rounder, and then, possibly undraftable if you're PFF. So I just don't think that the hate is warranted, basically, is what I'm getting at. And him being at 87 is us just liking him.
If he was eligible to come out last year, what would he have ranked among that class of running backs?
Number one.
He
would still be, and that was out of last year, but I think he'd still be top 3 to everybody. And that's another separate thing. But like, still, even if he's like 30th on your board this year, he's probably top 5 on last year's board either way.
Right.
And that's just because of the difference in class ability. You're going to get undrafted free agents this year that are going to come out and be like insane players that you're like, okay, why didn't anybody draft this guy? And it's like, because they drafted someone else that they thought could have been better and warrantedly could have been better, So, yeah. Let's go on to the next slide. This is 61 through 80. First guy we're going to talk about, which is a pretty glaring player, is Maxwell Hairston. Maxwell Hairston's much lower on our board. He's 64th for us. PFF has him 43rd, Bleacher Report 33rd, Daniel Jeremiah 35th. He's actually minus like 180 to go in the first round. So this is like a big difference in value versus where, one of those things. He's also being boosted by his 40. Like we talk about every year, cornerbacks get over boosted for their 40. And some have the talent prior to running the 40, which you see on film, and then they have the 40 on top of that. But I didn't see the same amount of talent coming from Maxwell Hairston. And a lot of people want to talk about his breaking and his change of direction and stuff and his zone ability. Well, I don't think he can play man. And he had a 27.3 missed tackle rate. He just needs to add weight, and that could make him slower overall. It's just, I don't know that he's good. He's good. He's a 64 is good. That's a second round grade, basically, but it doesn't mean that I think he's worthy of taking a first round pick on this guy is all.
Yeah. And I mean, I think possibly a lot of it also has to do with there's so many corner needed teams at the late end of the first, early second, and so in any mock that you do, it kind of propels you to put some of these guys there. And because so many are coming off of injury plagued seasons or down years, and he is coming off a great combine, people are just kind of auto slotting him there, and it's like, well, if I'm taking him with the 25th pick, I can't put him in the outside of the top 50. That just doesn't make sense on our big board, and so I feel like that just kind of auto inflates people's ranking with him because of that. But yeah, I think we're just kind of staying true to he's a late second round ish corner that is being vaulted up, and almost not, I don't want to say by default because that's a little disrespectful, but I mean it's just based on opportunity and the lack of not the lack of need, but the abundance of needs for corner early in the draft. So yeah, he's definitely benefited because of that.
And on the next slide, we'll get into some more corners and we'll kind of compare. So when we get there, we'll just talk about each corner as we go through it. But another guy on this list that is really polarizing is Omar Norman-Lott. I cannot get behind PFF with their 27th overall player. I feel that's a little disrespectful to this defensive line class, if that makes sense. There's just so many good players, and I don't know that he's that much better than all the other ones.
Yeah, and I was talking about the biggest differences and stuff. 27th, that is first round-ish, late first round grade, and Bleacher Report has him all the way at 112, which is like fourth round range.
Yeah.
I think that's the epitome of this class is that there are so many guys that are so similar between like 25 and 90 to even 100 that all these guys we're I feel like we're gonna have so much to talk about in the day two.
Yes. Recap. Oh yeah.
Recap
for sure.
Because of the fact that we're just gonna see so many names that are just like, what are we doing? Or just like, why is we had him with the 26th pick in our final mock and he's still on the board at the end of the third.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things I think are very, very possibly evident in this class. So he definitely stands out because of that, because he is just on different spectrums. We're basically smack dab in the middle on him. He's just outside of our top 10 amongst all interior defensive linemen in a actually very, very loaded class. We've talked about that time and time again this year.
Yeah, we really like him. It's not that we don't like him. Playing for Tennessee is so annoying and watching them, but he did have he had an 18.8% pass rush win rate. He had a 19.3% pressure per snap. Like, those are awesome numbers. Don't get me wrong. It's just he's a little bit smaller, and by smaller, I mean like he's shorter. He's going to play 3 technique. He's probably going to be a pass rush specialist where he comes in on third down and moves inside a little bit. I don't know what his strength is going to be against the run. That's actually my biggest question with him, and that's why he's not higher on this board. But it's not that we don't like him. It's just I can't put him over Derek Harmon, Tyleik Williams, Alfred Collins, these other guys that are just like so much projection. The projection is so much easier on them, and they're much higher for a reason.
Right. And another person that I thought was interesting and wanted to bring up, and don't want to do spoiler, but if you did watch our big board, our top 50, Jack Sawyer was obviously on it. JT Tuimoloau, his teammate, was omitted from it. And the difference in opinion on him between us and others is very telling because, we view them as similar players, as really solid edge twos for your team. But we have about 40 pick difference for Jack Sawyer compared to JT, whereas that is basically the exact opposite of how others feel on their big boards. I mean, he's flirting with top 50 on most big boards. We're a little bit lower on him, but I think we're just so much higher on Jack. Can you kind of reiterate a little bit why we view Jack Sawyer so much differently than JT compared to others?
Well, I think they're both great at stopping the run. So if you're just going to say we just make that even, like they're both good at stopping the run, you take that off of the board. I believe in Jack Sawyer's ability to get after the passer more than I believe in JT. So that's kind of the biggest thing. Like, I don't know that I think JT can become a pass rush specialist. I think that he could be a sub-package guy that moves inside because he did play defensive tackle in high school and then when he came to college. That's what he was expected to play. But I don't know that I think he can just be a pass rush specialist ever in his career, which isn't a bad thing because, like you said, he's got good floor. I think the floor is great. I think if you get him at the end of the second round, you're really happy, or at the beginning of the third. It's just Jack, I think, has the ability to turn into more of a pass rush type of guy. I think Trey Hendrickson had a few years before he became a good pass rusher. I'm not going to say that Jack's going to have 17 sacks. That's not realistic. But I think he could turn into a good pass rusher. And I don't know that I think JT has that same upside as a pass rusher, and that's why they are where they are. I'm really surprised that Jack is so much farther down on Bleacher Report and PFF, 86 and 92 respectively, just because without the pass rush, if you just take the floor of his run stopping ability and his first and second down ability, he's still a top 70 player no matter what to me. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting to say the least. But yeah, a lot of good names on this board. But yeah, I'd say let's jump into the top 60 now.
All right, next grouping, 60 through 41. This is the quarterback and cornerback slide we're going to have to talk about the most. You don't see Cam Ward up there. He's 40, so he's on the next slide, but he's the first guy on the next slide. We have Cam Ward, Shadur, and Jackson Dart all in this range, while most people have them a little bit more inflated and closer to the top. People projecting, creating prospects in big boards should not be based on positional value as much. It should be who's the best prospect, and I think that a lot of drafter analysts and stuff move quarterbacks up higher because of the positional value. But if you're going to say, like DJ and Mel Kiper I think has 5 and 6 for 2 quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. Those 2 quarterbacks, if you had them in last year's class, are they still in that 5-6 range? No, they're not, because I'll tell you what, there's 6 quarterbacks that were better last year, and that wasn't my words. It was my words, but it wasn't just my words. Mel Kiper also said that. So you have a guy at 5 who wouldn't even be in the top 6 quarterbacks last year. So how can that prospect ranking make any sense is my biggest thing. So we actually just rank them based on prospects. We see 40, 53, and 55. That's why we do it this way.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel, excuse me, a little harsh that, basically the consensus 101 in this draft upcoming next Thursday will be Cam Ward, and he's our 40th ranked player. And then Shadur and Jackson Dart are going to be the talk of the night because they are almost virtual locks to be a first-round pick.
Right.
Don't know where they're going at this point because of the shuffling that's going around with a couple of teams. But it's just kind of like, hey, putting somebody as a top 6 prospect in an entire class, but having severe doubt of whether they could even achieve becoming a top 12 at their position, which I'm not even very much sold that a single one of these guys can. I just can't. The logic doesn't make sense to me. I don't necessarily say that positional value can't be a factor, but it's just overweighed too much.
Especially quarterback.
Yeah, especially
right.
quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, if you were like running back versus wide receiver, I'd rather rank the wide receiver higher. I mean, if that's your tiebreaker, fine. But it's not like I'm going to push this guy up 20 picks. Like, basically, if I put all these quarterbacks 20 picks higher, that would be kind of the idea of what everybody else is doing. So that was kind of the biggest basis on quarterback. The thing is, like,
this might be the lowest amount of quarterbacks we might ever have on a top 100 big board. There's only 3. But there's guys like Jalen Milroe and Tyler Shaw that are being flirted with early second or maybe fringe late first rounders. And it's just kind of insane to us that people are going that route. But I mean, that's kind of when you wait so long to address a position, that's kind of what you get cornered into a box to doing, and it forces your hand to make decisions that you might not benefit from in the long run.
Right. And I just want to put this idea in perspective, because last season when we did our rankings also, our quarterbacks, and that was a better class, but our quarterbacks were second. We had Caleb Williams second, Jaden Daniels 7th, and Drake May 8th. So it's not like we're not willing to put quarterbacks in the top 10. Those guys were capable players that we thought. And then we had some guys in the late 20s and early second round, which was Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix Jr. So it's based on position. And there were 6 last year. Like Cam said, we'll probably have more normally, but we just happen to have only 3 because that's all we see making the top 100 players.
Yeah, and again, I can't reiterate it enough. All of these guys would have been behind all of the picks last year.
Right.
And there were 2 guys at the end of the day that people were scoffing at being considered top 15 picks, being, a Bo Nix or a J.J. McCarthy, even Michael Penix because of the injury history and age. And it's just well, they're better than all these guys, and we want to put them in the top 10.
Yeah.
So I just don't get it. But nevertheless, let's kind of move on to some of these guys that are jumping into the discussion that were just on the outside looking in of our top 50. You got Cam Scatterbo, who we really like, Xavier Watts, Dylan Sampson, Siobhan Revel, Trey Harris even. A lot of good names, a lot of good skill players in this kind of day two range that could contribute and actually usurp or pass some of the guys that are just much higher than them on a lot of big boards.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the cornerbacks because this is the cornerback page. We just talked about Maxwell Hairston. In kind of giving a comparison, Cam said, there's a lot of needy teams at the end of the first round. Well, what puts Maxwell Hairston over Savon Revel, Trey Amos, Azaria Thomas, or Benjamin Morrison? Like, what puts him above them? And personally, obviously, we don't have them ranked that way. We think these guys are higher, but it's just one of those things that the cornerback ranking after, the Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron conversation is just so jumbled. You're not going to get any of it like perfect. It's kind of all over the place. It's betting on upside versus betting on like the season-ending injuries, and because Benjamin Morrison, we don't know about his injury. Azaria Thomas ran a slow 40. Savon Revel played 3 games this year and then got injured. Trey Amos is the most consistent guy. Like, how to bet on these guys. And so just kind of giving some background on all these guys is just it's a very fun cornerback class, but I think they're being pushed up way too much based on the fact that there are teams that need cornerback. And
Right.
I would just rather take best player available.
It's kind of like an auto select or placement, but it's just like we've seen cornerback infamously be pushed down boards as drafts go on based on how, everybody, all the picks rolled out. I mean, we saw a lot of guys in the second round last year. Cooper DeJean had no reason falling outside the first round, let alone to wherever it was in the 40s.
Yeah.
Or at pick 40.
At 40, yeah.
And being like the fourth corner off the board. Obviously, a lot of people did like Terrion Arnold, and Quinyon Mitchell eventually became the cornerback 1, which we were very early on. But, yeah, it's just one of those things where, sometimes they're pushed down further than you think. And but a lot of these guys on tape just had really, really strong careers or good seasons that are just kind of plagued by injury.
Mm-hmm.
Benjamin Morris is the prime example of he was a pure top 20 pick in our eyes before, going down with an injury. And he was in the discussion of cornerback 1B or to 2 in this class. And now he's just an afterthought.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of one of those things.
In summer, Benjamin Morrison was challenging for that. And, we didn't even know, like, Savon Revel was going to be we knew Savon Revel played really well last year and his athleticism's crazy, but we wanted more to know where he should go. A lot of people are pushing him up, too, because they do believe in what they saw in 2023. I get it completely. He's got the athleticism and things like that. So there's a lot of really good cornerbacks is all we're trying to say, but they're not as good as the placements they're getting in mock drafts, in my personal opinion. So I just wanted to kind of shout that out. It's a big range of corners, though. Mm-hmm. And then let's go to the next slide. There's a bunch of things to talk about on this next slide. This is a fun slide. So where do you want to start, honestly? Because, I think there's some major things we have to go through.
Well, I think the biggest kind of talking point is our biggest negative difference from our first big board to our next is Jalen Walker. And he is becoming the kind of consensus after Mason Graham and Abdul Carter, the next guy that is going to come off the board. And, he fell all the way from the top 20, which he still is in the top 15 on most big boards. Even Daniel Jeremiah has him at 5.
Yeah.
He jumped all the way down to 33, which was a big, big loss. What kind of went behind the decision for you to push him down that far?
Look, honestly, I think he should be farther down. Like, I'm being held up by the fact that, and look, as a scouter, you watch the film, you get an idea, and then you go look at what other people are doing. You're like, okay, what did I miss? And I personally, he's one of the guys I wish I would have ranked lower earlier, kind of like Tyler Booker, who's also on here.
It's like an overcorrection.
Yeah, it is. And I do believe that even Jalen Walker could be lower. The problem is, guys, is I can't project a guy that is just a tweener that didn't stop the run at all, was awful in run defense as a linebacker, and I think he should probably play linebacker. I want to give y'all some things because, and I actually had a conversation the other day with a guy in our defensive line video about CJ West and his limitations because of his size and stuff like that. Well, we're going to have a very big conversation with Jalen Walker because we can't bet on everybody that is a outlier. An outlier should be 10% or less. I know that's not a statistical outlier. I am a math major, but 10 or less, 10th percentile or less. if you're talking about Jalen Walker as a linebacker, he's 6'1". That would be 31st percentile. That would be 2nd percentile as an edge. If he's at 243, that would be 68th percentile as a linebacker. That would be 6th percentile as an edge. 79 and 7/8 wingspan, that would be 79th percentile as a linebacker, 43rd as an edge. And 32-inch arms would be 41st as a linebacker and 6th as an edge. So 3 of the categories that actually matter for Jalen Walker to be a good edge at the NFL level are less than 10%. I think he's a good player in the way that, like, I love his explosiveness and I love like his quick twitch ability and stuff. But like, this is the NFL. We're talking about some of the best athletes in the world, and they're playing offensive tackle. There's a reason they play that position.
And I'm not exactly familiar with how strong, top of my head, how athletic he was, or because I know he didn't do anything.
Yeah, he didn't test. Yeah.
So, like, it feels too much like a Isaiah Simmons, but without the size. Am I crazy for saying
it's
that?
more like Devin White. Like,
Okay.
you're gonna get a guy, and I like this comparison because they actually are very similar in size. But you're gonna get a guy that is a rush linebacker and not going to help you in coverage, not going to help you stop the run. He's just going to be there to go and run after the quarterback, and you basically say, hey, walk up into a gap, move around, make it look very NASCAR-esque. I know if you've ever heard that term, where everybody's moving, and then go. And it's like, okay, but that is such a small portion of what football is.
Right.
And if you're actually going to put him at outside linebacker and make him rush off the edge, I don't believe in his percentiles. And if we're going to put him at linebacker, he's a bad run defensive linebacker. So I have so many things that I'm like, okay, this is a red flag. This is a red flag. This is a red flag.
And what's funny is that there are so many people trying to convince the public, at least from the scouts' perspective, that he's going to go very, very early and probably deserves to. And we're just like, hey, we can't wait to talk about it in a negative way once draft comes this Thursday, because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, he's going to be a top 8 pick, and we're going to have to live with that.
Yeah.
But
not to the Raiders.
You never know.
Please don't make bad decisions. But no, I mean, like, and another thing, just like kind of to wrap up, but like I said earlier, we cannot bet on every outlier.
Right.
And Jalen Walker didn't even play edge rusher consistently at college. Like, his best film is Texas by far. And I blame Quinn Ewers for more sacks on that game than I do him making the sacks first off, or Kelvin Banks giving up the sacks. So if you watch that game, like, you go back and watch that film, there are so many times I'm like, oh, Kelvin did a good job there, and then Quinn stepped into Jalen Walker and just fell down, basically. So I don't know, man. I love his explosiveness. I think he right now is incapable of reading and reacting as an inside linebacker, which is not good because you're getting picked so high. And then also, as an edge rusher, you are literally percentile-wise less than 50 in everything. So, except for probably speed. But great. He's 6'1". Like, I hope it's 6'1", 243. I hope he's fast, you know? So, it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah, and I mean, another guy on this list that did fall a ton, 10 spots from our previous ranking, is Tyler Booker.
Should have believed it. I'm sorry. This is also on me. You know? I should have just believed it because I believed that he wasn't that guy. You know? And I had him ranked much lower. I've seen him. He was like 10th on Daniel Jeremiah's first big board. And I was like, okay, cool. And I respect Daniel, you know, and that's kind of part of the problem. Maybe I should have just not respected all of the rankings as much and, you know, just put guys a little bit farther down that I was like, okay, he's got some issues. He's very stiff. He's not very scheme versatile. He's probably just going to have to run downhill and block downhill. His movement ability, if you just look at the combine numbers, you know, his 10-yard split, 1.96. That was 2nd percentile. That is awful. Mm-hmm. His 40, 5.38, 25th percentile is vertical, 27 inches, 37th percentile. And then the broad jump was 10th percentile at 94 inches. So it's just, there's some problems with his athleticism. But I do enjoy the player idea of like what Alabama says about him and how he is, you know, portrayed as a guy. But it's like, okay, but if he can't athletically do it at the NFL level, I don't care how good of a leader he is. because
Right.
it doesn't it won't matter. So that's kind of my thing with him. And he did fall. He is 35th now. He's behind Donovan Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, but this slide's not all negative. I mean, most of this range is kind of where you see the back end of the first round. Kind of a lot of these names, other than I guess Alfred Collins, were a little bit higher on than others.
Right.
I haven't seen much of him in the first round, but he will be very early mid second round pick. And then Kevin Winston, we were that was our biggest differentiator before, and people are kind of starting to catch up a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Even PFF is all the way up to 29 on him, and it's just like, yeah, just you got to remember
It was
it can't just be what happened yesterday.
It was a duh moment. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like they were like, we get to laugh at them at the moment. You know, like what I mean? Actually, that franchise guy, which is one of the bigger podcasters for the NFL draft, I watched his video on safeties because I wanted to see where he had Nick Emmanwori and Kevin Winston, because those are polarizing players for us, obviously. And in his first saying, he's like, yeah, all the people that scouted this guy early, like, they're laughing at us right now. And I'm like, yeah, because this guy was, and I scouted his 2023 film and then kind of rewatched it because I was like, oh yeah, that was,
Played 2 games essentially.
yeah, there was nothing this year, but 0% missed tackle rate, 50% completion rate, and an 86.8 coverage grade, like 90.6 run grade. Like, he's that guy, and he deserves to be this high even if he didn't play. But he also ran a 40. Like, that was one thing. Like, everybody was like, oh, well, is he going to be okay to play? Well, 6 months after he got injured, he ran a 4.51. That's going to be lower in 3 months. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's going to get better.
Right.
So, yeah, he's that guy, and he deserves to be this high. And I think he's one of my favorite players in this draft. So, wherever he goes, could be first, could be fourth round, because I just don't know. The range of outcomes is crazy.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, and then Donovan Jackson
Yeah,
jump up
love
a
that
couple
guy.
spots. Again, he was the guy that when Josh Simmons went down, step out to the left side, did flawlessly en route to Ohio State's national championship run. Fun names on this list for sure. And then Nick Emmanwori, for what it's worth, he was the one that broke the combine with his 100 percentile.
Shamar Stewart's right
performance.
next to him, too.
Shamar Stewart, a couple of polarizing guys that both of them broke combine, and we didn't overcorrect in a positive light because we just kind of had them there to begin with because we assumed they would be athletic, and
Yeah.
their 40s didn't reflect, oh yeah, we should forget about every single thing that happened prior to that.
Exactly. Yeah, so they didn't move. Actually, I think they
Shamar
both
actually
went
moved-
down.
Shamar actually moved down. Nick stayed neutral.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it was just kind of like we anticipated the overreaction of that, and we just kind of were like, this is where they're going to be, and it probably isn't going to change based on the athleticism because we know that's what they're going to bring.
That is their calling card. They
Yeah.
are athletic. Let's go to the next one. 30 through 22. So I guess I'll go first. I love Tyleik Williams. He's one of my stands. He is at 24 right there. Actually, let's just backtrack. Jack Sawyer is 28th on our board. We just talked about JT versus Jack. He's 28th. JT's in the 60s. There's your idea.
Right.
But Tyleik, we're going to talk about 2 more Ohio State players on this board. Tyleik Williams, I just love how dominant he is at one thing. Like, it's good to be good at a lot of things. That's fine. But being so dominant at one thing and not being as good at other things is actually, most of the time, I'm okay with. I'm more okay with, especially when you play a position like defensive tackle, when you expect run game style on first and second down. He is short, wide, and long-armed. And Jason Kelsey actually said this on the podcast with his brother. Least favorite players to block are guys that are shorter but also have long arms. Well, 6'2" and 7/8 for Tyleik, 36th percentile. His weight was 334 pounds. He looked great, first off, moving at the
Right.
combine.
It was a good 334.
Yeah, it was a good looking 334. 93rd percentile, and then his arm length is 33 and 5/8. That's 67th percentile. So I have no problem with that. He is by far my favorite run stopping defensive tackle, him and Alfred Collins together. And then I think he has more upside as a pass rusher. He was a 5-star. He's got athleticism. I think he can learn how to pass rush. That's why he's this high. I love this guy.
Yeah, and It's funny how deep Ohio State is. I mean, if you include the last two slides, they have like 6 of 8 slots in a specific range. Like there's a reason that they were the best team last year and won the Natty in dominating fashion. So, but I did want to touch on TreVeyon Henderson a little bit. I mean,
Yes.
he was our only tier 3 running back when we did our running back rankings. But it was even more evident when I saw you put the final big board together, because we actually dropped Caleb Johnson about 8 spots. Quinshon he was like he was the last guy out of the top 50 video, and then he creeped into the 50th spot. But there's a 20 spot gap from him, and then we'll see where the other 2 running backs rank, but obviously they're now on this slide. They may or may not be on the next slide, so there's a pretty sizable gap both ways. He's kind of separated himself. It's kind of interesting how people are viewing it, because he was a guy that surprisingly came back last year. I was shocked. He was one that was coming off a down year. And it's funny how, either recency bias or just one year really makes you forget stuff, because nobody was really considering him like one of the top running backs last year. And that was one of the worst classes that we've seen. He comes back, and then all of a sudden, as a 1B, he is now, people are trying to convince themselves he's the RB2 in this class.
Well, I think last year's conversation, he would have been top 3 no matter what to me.
For
but,
sure,
but at the same time, like he is by far and better than all those guys on this board. Like, they didn't even make our top 50. He's in the top 30. That tells you everything you need to know about what coming back meant for him. I think that the best opportunity he got was when Quinshon decided to go there, because he is truly not a scat back. Like, he can still run like zone, inside zone sometimes. Like, he still has that ability, but his third down work with Quinshon on the team and him giving that change of pace was just so special. And we talk about how, 2-headed monsters in the backfield is a good thing. You look at what Detroit does, and they're kind of the precedent for this stuff. And TreVeyon adds a Jahmyr Gibbs-esque. I don't know that he's that good, but he definitely adds that style to an offense. And I think that that's important. He's also a really good pass blocker, so that puts him,
that's a positive thing, because you don't really see that
huge.
many smaller running backs that are that great at running pass blocking. Which that was something that at least Todd McShay on the things that you don't have to pay for to see from him. He did mention how abundantly clear it is. How even though it is a really good running back class, there are so many that are not good in that area.
Right.
So that really kind of helps you stand out a little bit when you kind of thrive in that, rather than just like, hey, he'll do.
Yeah, and I think he has the individual play difference maker style, where he can take any ball. Like you saw it in obviously the Texas game at the end of the half. He takes the touchdown for 75 yards. Like, he has that ability at any time in the game. He's not necessarily the fastest guy. I thought his 40 was going to be faster. We talked about that on one of our shows, him versus Quinshon. But, like, at the same time, like, as soon as he's in open space, he looks faster. So it's separate thing, And then you wrote in a question about this class or this slide, so I'll let you ask it.
Yeah. So essentially, which Buckeye would you say is more likely to go earlier between TreVeyon Henderson and Emeka Egbuka? Because Emeka is all of a sudden even if you want to throw Luther Burden in there, like, they are not really that present anymore in late first round. But we've actually kind of seen a lot of teams interview and visit with TreVeyon, even as high as 20 to Denver. Like, there's kind of, it's trending in the opposite way, to where we could see even a third running back go really high, whereas the other guys are kind of falling into the second round.
So I think that Emeka Egbuka is actually my preferred, if I just think about which one I think would get drafted first. His ability to, I think he has a strong chance to go at the end of the first round somewhere, in some way. But he's definitely going to go early second round. So TreVeyon would have to sneak into a team that's like, we just need a running back and we feel good about our team at the end of the first round, and I just don't see a ton of those.
Right.
You could say he goes all the way at 20, because I actually think he fits what
Denver wants to do,
Sean Payton likes, and the stylistically. So if that happens, but I think that's his best landing spot to go ahead of Emeka. Otherwise, I think Emeka goes first.
Right. Yeah.
That was my biggest
I was just curious, because I've seen that kind of trending in opposite direction. So has it gone so far to where we could even expect 3 first-round running backs in
Maybe.
I know it's already a loaded class, and usually you would think on the surface, hey, it's a loaded class. I don't have to draft one in the first round because one is there in the second or 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys have separated themselves so much that it's almost kind of warranted in that regard. But it was just fun food for thought.
Yeah, and then we'll go to the next slide because unless you have anybody else you want to talk about.
No, I mean, pretty much most of these guys staying where they are. Gray Zabel, one of our stands, has
big
jumped
mover.
up.
Yeah.
Basically, he was on this slide before, and now he's at the top of the slide because we like him so much.
So, okay, conversation. Just quick, sorry. Separate. Tyler Booker, I was not high on. I should have put him lower.
Yep.
Gray Zabel, I loved before the Senior Bowl. I should have put him higher. And now I'm, kind of like late to the party, it feels like. But like I texted you and Dustin multiple times. I said Gray Zabel's one of my stands. Watch him at the Senior Bowl. Then he goes and is the favorite by coaches, had the best week of practice. I should have just believed in myself a little bit more on this one. And that's going to happen with some guys. But like Gray Zabel was a guy that I was like, this is a guy. You have to have this guy. And he might go 18 to the Seattle Seahawks because of it. But we'll go on.
All right. So, yeah, basically cracking our top 20 plus Kenneth Grant because he's really good at what he does. And he's just kind of one of the lost I said that on a recent episode when we were breaking down stuff. Just kind of an overlooked guy that he's always in the early 20s, and just people just put him there by default, and no one is really discussing him like, he could be an instant difference maker, but yeah, he deserves to be as high as he is. Mikael Williams, it's interesting because he was kind of where Jalen Walker is as like the, hey, way too early, defensive player 3 off the board, and we're just like, that's a little high. On our first mock, he was 7th overall, and so we kind of had him lower on our board, and then all of a sudden we're kind of rising on him a little bit while others are kind of
normalizing.
Yeah.
It feels like I think Michael is the guy that I want to bet on, and that was something that he hasn't done it, and so it's really hard to project, but he has all the tools. He's very similar to like your Shamar Stewart, who I'm not betting on as much because I think Michael has like some juice, like some serious juice. He could have been higher on this list, but I was like, the other guys around him, I really like also. Like that next range from Jade, Tet, Colston, Malachi, and Jihad, all 5 of those guys, I'm like, oh man, that's a tough range to rank. They're all good. They're all higher or low, like very, very different thought processes on different boards for these guys too, that I think is interesting. So yeah, Michael just made it to 20 because I didn't think he broke into that next range. But I will be betting on him as the next best edge behind James Pierce, who's at 13.
Yeah, and this whole slide is kind of a very interesting blend of players because all of these guys have no idea what range they're going to go in the draft because all of them could be a shocking top 12 pick. But then all of them could be a late first to falling out of the first altogether.
Agreed.
Which we've seen, with James Pierce being at the top of the slide. Kelvin Banks has been hot cold with a lot of his, buzz. Jihad Campbell, he was going to become a top 10 pick, and then all of a sudden the shoulder injury comes out, and so that's kind of cooled down his stock a little bit. Malachi Starks is still our safety 1. Most people still have that. A couple have flipped Nick Emmanuel over him, but I think for the most part the consensus is him kind of being, safety 1, going somewhere, no idea where. And then Colston Loveland is somebody that there's a lot of people taking stands on. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah has him at 7, Mel Kiper at 11, and a lot of people say that he's not even going to get out of the top 14.
No, and I actually somewhat agree. If Tyler Warren goes at 7 or goes at 10, wherever Tyler Warren goes, it'll all to make Colston Loveland's draft, because he'll go at 14 to Indy
that kind of seems like the floor at tight end, basically.
Yeah, first tight end has to go at 14 to me. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But after that, it's like, okay, who would take Colston Loveland? Well, I think Seattle. I think there's some teams. But just looking at this board, I know the biggest talking point is obviously James Pierce and Kelvin Banks dropping out of the first round grades because this is not the first round grade slide. And there's some conversation to have. I think that a lot of people obviously dropped these guys earlier, but at the same time, it's not. I don't understand dropping. So James Pierce got dropped because of how his how he acts and stuff, like his
Maturity.
yeah, is he coachable, those things. Sure, whatever. His talent on the field is 13. That's not a problem to me. I don't disagree. Like that's a ridiculous thing to, like, when you're talking about prospects and you're watching film and you're just like, yeah, we have to move his ranking because he might be hard to coach.
In a draft that is not filled with a ton of first round talent, you can't just like, hey, we're forcing him down boards when he is like the closest thing to being a first round grade because of the maturity. And so he's going to be 20 spots lower because of that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that can do what he does, even though the edge is pretty jumbled. And we can acknowledge that some people are going to go above him that probably shouldn't.
Yeah, fair.
But at the end of the day, like you got to bet on talent in drafts like these when it's just kind of all shriveled up in the middle.
I mean, this is the best, like, one-on-one edge rusher. Like, if you're like, it's third down, I need to get a sack, like, you're going to put James Pierce on the field over any of the other guys. Him and a couple guys above him. I rewatched the film, because I wanted to make sure, because everybody else is like, dropping them, and I'm like, okay, well, let me rewatch, whatever. And what I did was, I looked at them versus last year's class where I had first round grades on certain guys, and I rewatched their film. And the reason Kelvin Banks actually, I love his decision making. I think he's very intelligent when he plays. I don't love his movement ability, and that's part of the problem. He's clunky. He's a little clunky. He lacks some athleticism, and that's athleticism compared to the elites. You know what I mean? Like the round one grade guys, not athleticism compared to the 50th guy on our board. And the other problem is, like, is he going to have to play guard? And that was my other question mark that I had to put out there, is like, if he has to play guard, I just don't know that I can put him in the first round grades. And that was one of my other things. I think his clunkiness, his lack of some athleticism, and then, just I think he had a down year comparatively to his 2023 tape a little bit. And so I was like, okay, we're going to just make the case and believe in what we see on the film, and that's why he moved down one spot.
How much of that down year, or how heavy of a factor, at least rather,
very small,
is
the down year?
Well, yeah, but yeah. I'm saying the down year from the year before. Well, yeah, you're moved into the SEC with all these first round, caliber edges, and you're facing much more tougher competition compared to them being in the Big 12 and the way they did on the way out. I think that had a lot to do with it, but I mean, it's still.
He's 14. He's still 14. Yeah, we still love him. It's not like it's just I don't know that he gets a first round grade. And I think one thing we're going to have to really talk about as a community is that this class is not good compared to last year's class and previous classes. And there's certain positions like wide receiver that we're pushing up, and we think they can replicate what we saw last year. Well, there were 4 1,000-yard receivers last year out of the class, 3 and a tight end. But you know what I mean? 4 guys that caught 1,000 yards last year. We're not going to see that. It's just not going to happen. So we just need to reevaluate how we talk about this class. When it comes to James Pierce, I think that, I rewatched him and I compared him to Latu, Dallas Turner, and Jared Verse. And I came away being like, I would rather have all 3 of those guys. And Jared Verse was 16, and there were 17 first rounders. And I was like, you know what? Truly, if I want all 3 of those guys over him, I don't know that he is a first rounder.
Right.
That's just how it goes. Mike Green, who we'll talk about in a minute, he did get that, he did make the first rounds. And it's because I think I would take him in the same exact spot as I would take a Jared Verse. Now, Jared Verse went off, and prospect-wise, he wasn't as good because he had a down year in he had a down year. They went undefeated type of thing. Oh, my phone. Sorry. Kind of thing, but, he just wasn't as good as he was in prior years, and I think I would have taken Mike Green in the same, range, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think that's completely fair. And then one last name that I guess we haven't even mentioned is Tetairoa McMillan. He's still, our wide receiver 1, not including a Travis Hunter because he's a tweener, or not a tweener, but he plays both sides. But just true wide receiver, he's wide receiver 1, and a lot of people are putting him behind a Matthew Golden now. But I mean, PFF has Tetairoa as high as 3.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like one of those things. I don't know. I said this very, very early when we were, breaking down this class, and I just believed much more in his floor than his ceiling. That doesn't mean I think he could become a bust, but I think a lot of people are starting to drop him down boards because they're uncertain if he can achieve something as high as what he was hyped up, which was like the Mike Evans-esque ability.
When you say bust, I don't think you mean bust in like the way of like he might not like be as good as his draft stock. If he goes at 8
Right.
or 6, he's not going to be nearly as good as that draft stock. And that's why he's at 18. Because that's about where his draft stock is like, okay, this guy is a number 1 in an offense. He could end up being a top 20 wide receiver, and we like him a lot, but there are reservations with him basically. While other people think he could be an all-pro, first team all-pro type of guy.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing I did want to bring up because one of the funnest things when we did do the positional breakdowns, how we broke down this class plus last class, combined the rankings,
Right.
and what would it have put, and he would have been 6th, and that was behind a Travis Hunter plus the big 4 that came last year. So that's still above Lad McConkey,
Yeah.
Adonai Mitchell, obviously all these guys in this class, and then there was a pretty big drop off after that range of guys. But yeah, we still like him a lot. We're just not certain that he's in the tier, at least, of the next guys that were all last year, well deserving of being top 10 picks, or even Brian Thomas being.
Yeah, if you watch Brian Thomas's film versus Tet's film, you're like, okay, Brian Thomas is the better player.
Yep.
And that's kind of my thing. Like, we just need to remember old guys that have done it, and then kind of go from there. And I think a lot of draft analysts do that, obviously, but they also get all wound up that it's like, oh, I'm excited about this year. And it's like, okay, we have to take a step back, look at it big picture. Tet's not as good as these guys, and that is what it is, Let's go on to the next spot.
All right, first round grades. Top 12.
Yeah. Everybody else stayed in the first round grades. They moved around a little bit. One guy that moved up that I keep watching and I'm like, golly, this dude is so good at football. It's Amarian Hampton. He, I believe, was 12 or 13 originally.
I think we had him at 13.
13.
So he was one of the last guys.
Yeah, and it maybe a little bit of positional value, like blockage by me, but then I was like, no, he's him. Let's put him at 7. He's just, the more you watch him, the more you like him, and you remember that he played on a 6-6 team with terrible quarterback play, and like he did so much, and he had nothing, and that's the biggest thing. AP second team All-American, 138 yards per game. 26 15-plus yard runs, and the biggest one is the 1,222 yards after contact. Like, that is so impressive for a guy. He runs behind his pads. He falls forward. He is a 3-down back. He's a good receiver. He's a stud. An absolute stud.
Yeah, and I feel like people are just trying to force their mentality of you just don't draft a running back early, and that's why he's lower on boards. It's like, this is a big board. Just ranking prospects and their ability to not exceed, but achieve success relative to what their position is.
Right.
And again, based on where he goes, I've said this before on a mock when we had Dallas taking him. If he goes to Dallas at the end of the year, he's already a top 10 running back in football, and that's might be a floor if he's healthy in his rookie year. Like, he's capable of instantly coming in 1,500 yards, every down back, workhorse, fantasy darling, all that stuff. But people are like, Mel copped out so lame. I don't know if you watched him and Phil Yates did
I have one for you in a second. Go ahead, though.
But for his first 3 mocks, he had Dallas taking him at 12 every single time. And first time, it was like, whoa, that was out of left field. Second was like,
Yeah,
okay,
this is normal.
Well, he wouldn't do it twice in a row unless he truly believes it. He does the third time. Now everybody's starting to put him up there. And then when they did a combo mock where they just went back and forth, similar to what we did, but we did it better. His reasoning for not putting Dallas at 12 was, I wanted to find a way to get him down to Denver, making it seem like that's the only spot that can take him before Denver. And if that's the case, it's just like you're trying to force a fit rather than just.
Why can't he go to the Bears?
Exactly.
Like, you had him going to the Bears, but like, why can't he?
But yeah, I just want to say, for what it's worth, like, he's like minus money. What was it? What did you say? Minus 150 to go in the top 19?
Oh, I don't know off the top
It
of my
was
head.
like
I'm sorry.
it was 19 and a half. Denver's at 20. Basically,
Yeah.
it's like, is he going to be available at 20 for Denver, or is he going to be gone before?
He's a
And
favorite to go under.
It's a favorite to go under.
Yeah.
But yet every mock that you read, other than Mel, but now no longer Mel, is putting him to Denver, and
Yeah.
it's just the by default thing. Not, hey, no, he's that good, and if
Right.
you want to put Ginty at 6, Chicago still needs a running back, and he's so good that he warrants being 10 if that is, indeed the direction they want to go.
Yep. I will say too, like if you're just looking at this board, like it is a little bit more like you watch other people's boards and like when you talk about the top 15 and there's like 3 differences, like 3-point differences, that's a lot, you know? Like a Will Campbell, he's at 11. I mean, he's at 5 for most people. So that's a big difference. And so with Omar and Hampton, I think he's probably now, because we had him early. We thought of him this high early. Now he's at 7, but other people are like, oh, he's probably 10-ish. And I'm like, okay, well, it's still a big difference. 7 to 10 is a big difference because those are good players up there.
Well, let's talk about our biggest difference and our biggest stand. That's Josh Simmons. Still being our tackle 1. He is 6 overall, 25th in Bleacher Report, 18th at PFF. He's 37th with Daniel Jeremiah and was not ranked on Mel Kiper's final big board, which I believe he only did 25.
Yeah, he only did
So,
25.
What is the reason why people aren't putting the same level on him?
Well, I actually was going to say this on the last one, but it's a perfect segue. We talked, I was watching Todd McShay talk to somebody on like Path to the Draft or something like that. And he was like, yeah, I can't have, if I'm like sitting there and, my 10th best player hasn't been drafted and it's like the 30th pick, like that looks bad on me. And I'm like, why? You just believe in talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing here. It's like nobody thinks he's going to be a top 10 player, like as a like pick, but they're willing to say that he has the best talent. He's the most talented player at the position. He has the best film. And I'm like, okay, so just put him where he deserves to be on a big board.
Yeah, stop trying to like, hey, jockey around to put a value on a board. Just take a guy and put a stand on him where the range he deserves to be at.
Yeah, because I get it. He's gonna fall because of the injury. Like that's fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like I just would take him earlier than most people.
Right.
There's a bunch of teams and that you could say like that's a team that I think he makes sense at. Fine, but it's like don't disregard how good he is because he's injured. Like that's not cool. So we just take that stand of like this is his position. Of like, this is where he should be. If he would have played the whole season, he would have easily been here. He would be a New England Patriot at the end of the day. No one would be questioning it, whatever. And so he's 5 or 6 on our board, and he stays there because he's the best offensive tackle in the class.
Part of that, though, makes him one of the hardest players to put in a mock draft.
Fair.
Like, me and them behind the scenes are kind of putting together our ideas for our final mock that we'll be shooting in a couple days. And it's just... I went through like X amount of players and I'm just like, he's still on the board. I don't know where to put him. And it's just going to be really hard to place him and have any kind of confidence in it. But we're still, at the end of the day, we're going to love whoever invests in him. But they just need to just take that stand and believe in him like we do.
New England taking him at 4. If that happens, does that shock you? Like, honestly.
No.
It shouldn't because he's the...
But it would outrage...
Oh, for sure. But I don't care about them.
Yeah, no, I know.
Screw those people.
I'm just thinking because of how chalky the top, 6,
Yeah.
7, or even 8 have become in a lot of mocks. And, I did a rough first look of, hey, we're not doing trades. We're just doing, hey, what is our first, idea come together? And I'm just like, and I'm like everybody else. And it's just like.
Well, yeah, I think that it's pretty
know-
chalky top, 9, 10. I think my biggest thing is, Josh Simmons is out, value is from New England to New England.
Right.
That's it. That's where his range of outcomes is to me. Because if he doesn't go in the first round to New England, he could be a second rounder to New England, depending on what they do. If they go, obviously, with Will Campbell, like Chalk says, maybe not. But
Or Jalen Walker.
you know what I mean.
People want to try to convince you is a bad idea. But
Yeah.
that's a story for another day.
For sure.
But yeah, like you said, it's a very wide range of outcomes, but his talent warrants being here. Armand Mimbu, another guy that jumped up a little bit. He
Yep.
was kind of another one that you were a little early on, and even the athleticism that he showed at the combine even blew us out of the water.
Yeah.
So
Freak.
he jumps into the top 10 at 8, and he's basically kind of got I guess his floor is San Francisco. I don't even know if he even goes past that at this point.
My favorite pick for Dallas was Mimbu, and then he went to the combine.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like because I was like,
No,
oh,
no.
Dallas would be perfect. He could play guard and tackle on the right side, and then
Right.
never mind. Sorry.
So long.
Yeah, I mean he's basically my thoughts are he goes to the Raiders, he goes to the Jets, and then you can kind of think anybody could move up, or he'll go to San Francisco.
Mhm.
Like that's kind of my thoughts for him. He's just too good to go out of that top 12. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, hell of a player. Walter Nolan, another guy kind of similar to James Pierce, fell a little down big boards because of character concerns, but at least Bleacher Report and PFF are holding kind of true to him being, first round grade-ish player at 14 and 8th respectively. So we have him at 9. We still love him as a player, but again, another guy hard to finally place on a mock draft because it's just like, how do others view him? But he's had a lot of visits in that middle of the first round range with Arizona, Cincinnati, and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see where we finally place him.
Yeah, Arizona got him in our mock, or in our What Would We Do mock. So
Yep.
Will Johnson too is falling down boards. He's actually behind Jahdae Barron on a lot of boards. We don't
Crazy.
see that, so that's okay. We just have a difference of opinion. And then Mike Green staying with the first round grade, like I said, because I think he's above James Pierce, and I think he's right there in that same Jared Verse conversation. Jared Verse was ranked 16th on our board. Mike Green's 12th. There is a difference in this class. There were 17 first-round grades last year. There's only 12. So it's kind of one of those things. We might even have given too many blue chips, but at the same time, the blue chips are legit. So
I mean,
don't
there's
know.
only one to me it's not even controversial, but I think 3 are consensus blue chips in this class.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one is just somebody that we're just going to take the stand and believe on. And, hey, his floor is like 2 spots lower, like Big Whoop.
Yeah. Let's pull it up, though.
Yeah.
And you can tell us which one you think is not a blue chip.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
One of these is not the other.
Who is undraftable up there? Tell me.
No. All of them are going to be gone after pick 5.
Yes.
And we're going to move on and try to figure out the draft from there. But, yeah, Abdul Carter is still our number 1. I think some people have kind of not overthought it, but they've moved him to number 2 in this class. And it's just like, well, you have so much positional value in, quarterback. So the edge is the, second or third most important position in football. And you're not going to put somebody who was the most dominant player
Yeah.
for his team, and it wasn't even close. He jumped off the screen immediately when you watched him play, and he's
With one arm.
Yeah, injuries
He's
be
stud.
damned. It doesn't matter. He's that guy, and the funny thing is just where he might end up if chalk goes the way it is. It's just like the one that least needed him in the entire top 5.
Yeah.
But that's going to make them the best defensive line in football. And so it doesn't matter how laughable their quarterback situation is. They're going to win many more games than you think because of that
I would-
fact alone.
Trade Kayvon Thibodeau at that point. Like,
Yeah.
sure. Like, go ahead. He doesn't.
Or become like Washington, where Washington had a top 5 defensive line because they had 4 first-round
Yeah.
off defensive
Everywhere.
line. And Chase Young was the highest pick of them all, and he was the one that was just like, oh, yeah, he did not pan out. But it's okay because he's surrounded by so much else.
Yes.
And then obviously they had to move on because contracts ended up, expiring. They had to make moves and what have you. But yeah, he's going to improve any which way instantly, and he'll be a heavy, heavy favorite to be Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yep. Mason Graham above Travis Hunter, very controversial. 1 spot difference between these guys because they're basically 2 and 3 on a lot of boards. So Mason Graham, the reason we like him is he's just so dominant in everything he does. Like, yes, he has 32-inch arms. I will bet on this one outlier because he was so dominant over everybody he played against. It wasn't an outlier where I was like, oh, but there's more question marks of if he could have been this or he could have done that. No, he did it. He was a good pass rusher. He got after the quarterback. He's great in the run game. And there's a reason that Michigan did so well in the national championship, and won the Natty 2 years ago.
Yeah,
So.
I'm glad that at least he hasn't fallen because I was worried that him and his talent because of Michigan's down year was going to make him fall because of people's recency bias and just like, hey, you're not coming off of your best year, but it's like, hey, yeah, everybody left. What do you want me to do? Me and Kenneth are just on an
hanging out.
island
Yeah,
range.
well, that
So-
Ohio State game, they're the reason they won. Those
Right.
two guys, like by
Exactly.
themselves, they don't need anybody else. They're just gonna go play two
I guess
two on
they're the-
11.
I guess they're the two-time national champs because their last game.
Yeah,
or
they
at
beat
least-
the Natty.
Yeah,
too.
I don't know if they played against Bama when they upset Bama in the bowl game, but I mean, back-to-back games, their final games of the season, that they were 3-touchdown dogs and they won both games.
Yep.
So, yeah, good track record for those guys. But Travis Hunter, another guy that has jumped to 101, or for a lot of people's big boards, and we like him a lot. And it's interesting discussion of just how good he can actually be and if he can achieve his ceiling, because it's almost becoming fairy tale-esque the way that scouts and some of these guys and scouts and analysts talk about him on TV.
I understand the projection, I do, but the reality isn't there as much to me. Is the big thing. Like, and we can have the conversation. Like, if Travis Hunter hits his ceiling, he's the best football player of all time. Like, it's there. It's the opportunity is there, and that's why people are putting him at the number 1 overall spot. The reality is that he's probably going to be a wide receiver 2 on a team, even though he's really good. I'm just saying his like natural body feel and like how he plays, probably a wide receiver 2. And then defensively, if he is like the best corner best corner he can be, it's still, there's a lot of things that he has to get better at before he's, a polished man corner. He's better in zone to me. Things like that. Like, it's just, if you want to be the best player ever, you have to shut down a whole side of the field. And right now he can't do that. So there's some more question marks, I guess.
And I wonder because like he has a fantastic work ethic and character. He interviews really well. But one of the recent tidbits of just like he was, and it's not like he came this out of the blue. He was asked a question: would you rather retire or be said that you can't play both sides? And he was like, yeah, I don't want to play football if I can't play both sides. And basically just taking the stand like, hey, I'm betting on myself, and
Right.
the team that drafts me needs to invest in that notion until I showed them that I can't.
Right.
But I just wonder, hey, what if you aren't dominant on one side or the other? Are you okay with like, hey, listen, like I can't do both because I'm not good enough to do both. I'm not saying he can't, but hey, if you're going to get burned
Yeah.
on time and time again, and we take you off the field because hey, you're actually a disservice because you're tired and you're not playing well.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with that? And then still mentally able to, hey, but
Play
on
offense, yeah.
we're gonna still target you out the wazoo, or hey man, you're dropping a lot of balls, but shit, you're shutting the hell out of this guy down.
Yeah.
Like we need you over here more. Are you able to do that and ebb and flow with it? On top of that, NFL, it's a year-to-year league, so you could be doing this for 2 years and it's awesome, and then injuries happen, and all of a sudden your 10+ year career turns into 3 or 4. All that stuff.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. Say he does pan out. What does his like second contract look like? Because like you're gonna get paid offensive money, but then you also have to get the luxury tax of, hey, I play defense too. Do you get like 1.5 your normal contract? Is he getting quarterback money? Like, it's just a question. I mean, obviously
Well,
this
the
isn't
thing
anywhere
is,
near where we're at, but like
Contracts are also year to year at this point because now
Right.
corners are getting paid $30 million, and running back has become a resurgence because of the fact that wide receiver 2 started to get paid 2x more than them, and people are like, oh, that was a bad idea to pay Christian Kirk $20 million. And yeah,
correct.
so kind of it's one of those interesting things because I mean at the end of the day, maybe 4 years from now, hey, Derek Stingley didn't pan out and J.C. Horn couldn't stop getting injured, and these
Yeah.
Sauce Gardner either got paid by the Jets or went somewhere else, and it all of a sudden now he's not a thing. And I think it just kind of depends on the elite players at the position, how well of a payout or investment it is. But right now, if he say his contract were to be up now and he were to have already panned out on both sides, yeah, he would be flirting with being top, non-quarterback money
Yeah.
guaranteed ever, which is like, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's how
It's interesting for sure.
polarizing it is. So
Yeah. And then the last guy, Ashton Genty, this is probably the guy you were talking about, being just a question mark if he's a blue chip or not, but just
no, it was actually Mason Graham.
Oh,
because-
really?
Just because I think a lot of people are just like, hey,
He has
The
a red,
thing
he
that-
has a red flag.
the thing that upsets me about Genty is that people are so okay putting him at 6 in the draft.
Mhm.
But say New England, who needs a running back in the running game, if they decide, hey, listen, it's too early for linemen, but we want to establish and get Drake Mason help, because at the end of the day, they need to get multiple skill players in this
Offensive.
draft.
Yeah, they have lots
so
of
if
holes.
they go with Ashton Jeanty, oh, that's a reach, though. It's like, oh, well, so Will Campbell wouldn't have been? Or so then why wasn't it 2 picks earlier when the Raiders, you were just so fine with a worse situation
Right.
drafting him?
Positional value, all the things.
It's just kind of like, and then on top of that, top 12 running backs in recent history has panned out more often than you would think. Like,
Yeah.
Name me the just outside of a Trent Richardson, which at this point is well over a decade ago. Like, what's outside of Leonard Fournette is the first and only name that really comes to mind in the top 12 that was a first-round running back that did not pan out. And I guess Todd Gurley, but that's
It's
purely
always
injury.
that's what I was gonna say. It's always injury. It's not ability.
Leonard Fournette basically just had a highlight reel that just couldn't be ignored. But
Yeah, fair.
he wasn't overly athletic, and then he started again injuries.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a very huge contributor on their Tampa Bay Super Bowl team.
Yep.
But Zeke led the league in rushing, and then he was a fool and really kind of wasted his prime a little bit with his immaturity issues.
Todd
as well.
Gurley was
Todd Gurley,
MVP.
MVP, Hall of
Christian
Fame crack.
McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey's there.
Um,
Bijan Robinson.
Bijan.
Jameer Gibbs. Oh, what a reach! Look
At
how that
12.
looks now.
Yeah, looks great.
It's one of those things where if somebody's so much more superior, just don't worry about it.
Yep. And that could be what we get here.
But at the same time, I'm still not sold on. A lot of people want to put Ashton above some of those guys as prospects. I still would put him or place him below most, or if not all, of those guys. If I'm just talking prospect of a running back, he's just the guy that has had all the touches and has worked out. Do you disagree?
I do. But I'm trying to think of
Outside of Jameer, which one?
Well, obviously Jameer. I think he's let's see. He's behind Saquon. Let's just be honest with that one. He's in the same range like Christian. I think he's above Todd coming out,
Really?
actually.
Interesting.
I think he's in that same Christian McCaffrey.
That was 10 years ago at this point, so I'd have to
Yeah.
rethink.
I think him and Christian McCaffrey are in the same boat,
Okay.
basically. And Christian McCaffrey goes to Carolina and does well, but it's still Carolina and their dysfunction, but in his injuries and all that stuff. But yeah, I think that's probably where Bijan's a little more difficult because it's such a wide range of years. So I would say he's like in the same range too. They're all in the same range, the three of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But Todd Gurley's probably right behind him.
Okay.
That's going to be very
Interesting.
controversial. I think we're going to get some comments on that one, if anything.
Well, yeah, tell us if you're doing it. But again, that was, I believe, 2015 draft was when Todd came out, which I can't believe it was 10 years ago. But he also was coming off a torn ACL.
Yeah, that's another reason why I
But
was
he
thinking
was
that.
still a 10th pick overall in the draft.
Yeah.
So people viewed him that high, and he instantly panned out, except for, I believe, his second year, he averaged like 3 yards a carry because his entire line just.
This is a fun conversation to
Below-
have on like our live stream. When we go to our live stream on Thursday, we'll have answers to this question. Okay, guys. But
At the end of the day, these were blue chips before. There are blue chips now. There's no movement. These are the guys, and they're all going to be drafted very, very early.
Yeah.
On Thursday night.
let me stop sharing. There we go. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. This will come out. This video will be out on Monday, and then we'll have one more video, which will be our final mock draft, and then we're gonna be doing our draft party.
Yeah, draft
so
week is here.
we're on
less
it.
than 7 days away. It's crazy. It felt like it was just taking forever to get here, and then all of a sudden it got here out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was one of those weird things, but we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have this far, please like, comment, tell us what you think about some of the stands that we took, whether we're right, whether we're wrong. Who are some of the stands that you're taking? That doesn't mean that they have to be the top player in this class, but who are some just guys not being discussed that you just are like, they're going to be him?
Yeah.
We want to know it all. Subscribe if you haven't already. Joined this community. We are so close to 250. I'm hoping that we get through that and exceed that on Thursday night when we have a big old draft party. It's going to be a great time. We're going to be on here for 3+ hours. Can't wait. And it's going to be a lot of excitement and hopefully a lot of plot twists and movements to warrant some discussion.
Yeah, I mean, there's some teams that we know are going to move around. We expect to move around. But at the same time, I hope it's not too chalky at the top. Like I hope
No,
it's
I think
fun
there's gonna
for
be
the
a
top
wrinkle.
10, and I'm excited about that part because I
I just
think
don't know
something
what that
crazy
wrinkle
is
is.
going to happen. So that's my excitement. I think the Raiders are definitely wrinkle team because Pete Carroll's there.
Of course they are.
Well, and we make bad
Of course
decisions.
they're a
We make
wrinkle
bad
team.
decisions. But Seattle always drafted weird
Yep.
too, so it's not going to be
There's a
what you
shooter
expect.
wrinkle. There's a running back wrinkle. There's a double tight end wrinkle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wrinkles, and I know it's chalky up top, but there's a lot of plot twists that happen and usually are discovered the night before. Daniel Jeremiah, to me, is my favorite guy to compare and contrast with, and as a evaluator, and things like him correctly predicting or foreseeing the CJ Stroud, hey, Houston's going to take him, but actually trade up for Will Anderson as well, which nobody else saw coming or was even close, and it ended up happening to a T exactly how we thought. Like some of those things really won't truly come out until the night before the draft. So
It would be nice if we had the same like people, conversations, calls. We don't have those obviously in the NFL circle, unfortunately. Maybe one day. And when we do, we'll be able to predict a little bit better. Funny enough, it's not going to change our drafts that much.
No.
We're going to, continue
our
doing it.
draft was awesome last year. Like we had a scoring system based on how correct position to team
Right.
combinations, and
We
then
did really good on that.
And then correct picks in general, but a couple of them we just overthought or convinced
Bo
ourselves
Nix.
at the end. Bo Nix came to mind. There was a couple of others that were a trickle down effect because of that,
Mm-hmm.
and we could have had about 13 or so like exact picks to
Yeah.
a T, which is elite because basically the standard is getting 8, and I think we got right there. And then after that, it's like if you can get half of the positions correct, then you're golden, and that's usually what we do a good job of exceeding.
I think the best I got was 14, and it was that Trey Lance draft because I got Trey Lance at 3 correct, and then
Right.
it kind of all fell into place. So that was one of my better drafts. But yeah, if you get 8, 25% of the draft is a lot, guys. So we appreciate y'all. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on Wednesday for our final mock draft, and then Thursday, come hang out. And we're going to be eating some wings and drinking some beer and hanging out. So we'll see y'all there.
See y'all guys.